Okay. So like I said, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this session today. As I mentioned, we're going to be going over prompt engineering and specifically looking at kind of a 101, like a basic understanding of prompts, how they work within common GPT technology, and how to apply those into your daily role. This is the beginning of a multi-part training that we offer to our clients to start to be able to utilize technology like ChatGPT in their current role and make themselves more efficient and more effective in whatever role they have within the organization. This is going to look really, again, at foundational, kind of what are the basics, what do you need to what do you need to know, and then we're going to go through a worksheet. This worksheet has the framework in place. There's 7 steps we're going to talk about of how to develop a good prompt, and then allow you to take that worksheet, work on some prompts, and actually test out yourself. So we're actually going to do a live demo here at the end. We're going to ask each of you to put together a prompt and actually log on to ChatGPT and try it out yourself if you have an account. If you don't have an account, they're free to sign up for the basic account. The ChatGPT 3 is more than sufficient for this type of a use case. All right. So with that said, I'm going to jump into our session. Okay. So today we're going to go first. Let me start with an introduction to artificial intelligence, commonly known as AI. And most people today, when they talk about AI, they've been exposed to primarily ChatGPT. That's the one thing that most people can mention. Though AI is present in a wide range of use cases today, sometimes in ways that you're not even realizing AI is benefiting you. But it's more than just technology, right? So we take a step back and try to understand what is AI very broadly. It's a concept that encompasses the emulation of human intelligence by machine. So it's not just a technology; it's a concept, right? It's a concept of trying to replicate the way we as people think using technology. And I'm sure all of you probably really didn't think about AI before about 2 years ago. And now AI is becoming a ubiquitous part of our daily conversation because of the rise and onset of ChatGPT specifically. And of course, the permeation of that type of technology, GPT technology, across virtually any kind of technology you're using today, whether it's your email, whether it's a search on Google. Most technologies that humans are interfacing with today have either already implemented some form of chat-based GPT or are working on implementing it to aid in the use of their platform. And there's a few different types of fundamental concepts within AI. The ones that you're probably most familiar with today would be the number 2, the natural language processing, taking systems that understand, interpret, and generate human language. So ChatGPT is a great example of a natural language processing, using chatbots and other interfaces to create language to converse with you in various language. There's also a lot of AI that you use today in the visual perception side that you're not aware of. So within any phone that you're using today, there's visual AI baked into the camera that starts to recognize the person's face that you're taking a photo of, trying to understand who it is, tag it together, and group those photos together, right? You don't know that's even happening, but it's happening kind of behind the scenes to add a better experience to the way that you use something like a mobile phone. There's also decision-making based AI. So those are algorithms that are making complex decisions based off of data and patterns. Typically, you see these in things like finance, healthcare, logistics, places where there's lots of data that's having to be processed and decisioned off of. And then there's learning and adaptation, things like machine learning, which is a subset of AI. You may have heard of machine learning. It's in ML, often as it's referred to. It's basically a subset. It's an offshoot of AI that really looks to learn from data and improve the performance of it over time, right? So take the data, analyze it, understand it, and then try to make predictions and changes to the way it looks at and perceives the next set of data it receives based off what it's seen in the past. What we're going to talk about today is GPT, or generative pre-trained transformer. Sorry, it's a mouthful sometimes to get out. And most of us really hadn't thought much about AI before ChatGPT came to market. And when it launched, it was revolutionary. And it was revolutionary because it was the first time that it was a simple interface that an average person could use, and it was cost effective. The barrier to entry within the AI space, really for the longest time, has been the cost of developing AI centered tools. I've worked for more than the last decade of my career running and founding technology companies that utilized AI or ML as part of its core features or functions. And I will tell you right now, it's been expensive. It's, up until GPT, writing even very basic AI algorithms took a long time, very expensive talent, and were really difficult to evolve over time because of how much hard programming was involved. Today, with the launch of GPT, it's changed the way people think about AI and how they're building these technologies. So we're obviously familiar with ChatGPT. The GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. And what's different about GPT than all other AI in the past is that it's essentially uh, uh, looking for patterns within data and sequences within a large language model. So within a large set of data, it's looking for patterns, it's looking for sequences, looking for insights, and then it's using that to essentially guess. And it's guessing word by word at what the next result is. One of the questions we hear a lot is, well, if I create something in ChatGPT, is somebody else going to create the exact same thing? And the answer is no. Every single time it's guessing at what the next word is, and the likelihood of it guessing the same thing twice is, near infinitesimal. It is it's near impossible for ChatGPT to create exactly the same thing two times in a row. Sometimes that's a benefit, sometimes that's a challenge, but what it has delivered is a technology that is fast, that is very flexible and able to be deployed in lots of different ways. Is pretty easy to train, especially in the context of when you look at everything else within the AI ecosystem. GPT technology is kind of one of the easiest types of AIs to train. And it's low cost. It's something that is easy to implement and low to maintain. And so that's really unlocked AI for the masses, really. And when we look at the way AI is trained, it's important to understand how are we getting to the results that we are seeing from a user standpoint. And first off, if we have anyone on the call that's an AI expert, let me be very clear. This is a super simplified version. I've dumbed this down to the absolute basic. There's way more nuance within the way AI is trained that I'm showing here, but I want to kind of simplify it for those that are just starting to take on learning and implementing AI within their current role. And essentially, there's three major ways that AI or a large language model is trained. The first one is heavy prompting, and that's just sending all the data through every single time. So if I ask, if I'm which is exactly what we're doing with ChatGPT. If I'm asking a question, it sends through the prompt, and it sends through the prompt every single time, looking to build on the answer every single time. Where a lot of AI is trying to get to is fine tuning, and this is where we're taking a limited version of the data that we want to pull from. We're training the GPT on that data, and then when the prompt is going out and asking the AI to deliver a response, it's only pulling from that limited amount of data that we're asking it to focus on. So it's pulling out the most relevant, the most important information, and using that to make its decisions. Whereas with kind of general models, it's pulling from the entire universe of information that it has at its fingertips. And then SQL semantics is another kind of way that you can train AI. It's essentially using databases to create guardrails for what type of information is being mined and processed to provide a response to the user. So heavy prompting is essentially where we're at today. We're just basically overpowering the sheer amount of data that we have available to us through pushing prompts through and getting results back over and over and over and over and over, as essentially kind of brute forcing AI into a response. So what is a prompt? A prompt is the input that you give to AI to describe the task that you want it to perform. It's a set of instructions, right? It's the way that you're going to inform the model what you're looking for. Typically, it's a question or a statement that will trigger some kind of a response. In most cases, most of these GPT platforms have like a chatbot type of interface. You put in the prompt and it generates a response for you. The quality of the prompt is really important. So the better the prompt, the more detailed it is, the higher quality of response that you're going to get. And so there's really rules, and not, these rules are ever evolving because these models are ever evolving. But a well-crafted prompt will tend to follow certain types of criteria so that you're ensuring that you're getting as much clarity and specificity as you possibly can. And think of it as a springboard to your interaction, right? A prompt is a starting point. It's not a finishing point. Too often we see new people who are new people utilizing AI is they throw a prompt in and they don't get the response they're looking for, or they don't get a response they're happy with, and it's done. It's over. They move off. They try to do something different. Instead, think about it as your prompt as a starting point to ask a question, and you continuously follow up with more refined versions of that prompt. Test out different variables to see what's going to get you to the type of response you're looking for. And when crafting, prompts, I mentioned earlier, clarity and specificity are key. So, for example, instead of saying, what's the weather, which is pretty vague, you might want to ask, what's the weather in San Francisco tomorrow, right? You've asked for the weather, you've given a location, you've given a date, right? That's more specific. Providing contextual information can also be exceptionally helpful to ensure that you're going to get a better outcome from your prompt. So, for instance, if you're asking for a historical event, providing the date or the location can lead to a more accurate response. And then finally, consider whether an open-ended or closed-ended prompt is going to be more appropriate. Open-ended prompts can generate more creative responses, while closed-end prompts will provide more of a direct, kind of finite answer. So think about kind of the ways what you're trying to get out of it, determine whether you want something open-ended or closed. So let's have a little chat about ChatGPT. And when we're designing for GPT, and this kind of goes for virtually all types of GPT, even image generative AI. If we have a few minutes at the end, we actually may jump into some ways of using this framework for image generation. But essentially what we have found is there's really 7 critical steps to designing a prompt. And let me be clear, like there's a lot of different methodologies out there. Many of them work really well. We've realized within business setting in particular, a framework that is simple to understand, that aligns with the way a company or organization already thinks and acts, will probably be the best, easiest to embrace within an organization. So we built this framework specifically to align with the way a lot of companies already, interact and create content internally. And so we have found, again, there's really 7 key steps in developing a really great prompt. Number 1, we got to define the role of the AI. Like, who is that person? What's their experience? How knowledgeable are they? We want to identify the purpose. We also want to specify what the request is, right? As much specificity as we possibly can. We want to provide context, as much context wherever we can. We want to set a tone and style, right? What do you want as the output stylistically? How do you want the language to be delivered? We want to clarify the structure. So what format are we looking for? And finally, the easiest to overlook and the most commonly overlooked is reread and refine. It's best to dial in your prompt first versus throwing this in ChatGPT, finding out it doesn't work, tweaking some stuff, throw it in again. spend some time. Think about what you have, reread it, make sure it's as clear, it's as specific, the tone is right before you send it through to generate your first content. All right, so let's dive into this framework. And this framework, you're going to see, we're going to go through every one of the 7 steps. The worksheet that we sent over earlier today and is available in the chat, it has these exact same 7 steps. This is going to provide you a little more context. You kind of understand what they are and how to use them. But it's an easy, simple framework that really anyone can follow. So first off, defining the role. So who is the AI supposed to be? What's the role that AI will define? And the role the AI will define the perspective of the content that's being generated. So what's the expertise of the AI? What kind of perspective should it employ while it's generating the content? And the more detailed you can get, the more detailed the response is going to get, right? And these typically start with sentences like you are or act as. So you are an MBA, you're a head of marketing for a large CPG company with an MBA from Harvard, yada, 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 right? The more specific you can be, the more the persona it knows to write from. So we're going to give you an example of what that portion of the prompt could look like. So you're an inbound marketer from National Art Materials Enterprises. You have a master's in copywriting from Harvard and are an expert in writing persuasive email copy. Right. So this is an example of how you can define the role. And when you think about these definitions, it can change, right? Instead of an inbound marketer, maybe you're a customer service expert. Maybe instead of writing persuasive marketing email copy, maybe you're writing a phone script. The key here is be as detailed for the content you're trying to create as possible. Make it relevant to the role that you're trying to generate the content for, right? So even though I may be a marketer, for instance, if I'm writing content for the customer service team, I would want this role to be written as if it's from a customer service expert. Okay, next thing I want to do is identify the purpose. So determine what you want the chatbot to do. Are you looking for an explanation, a creative story, some advice, a feedback, looking for inspiration, ideas? Whatever that purpose is going to help the AI formulate the right type of response. In this case, just for the demonstration purposes, we're going to assume that this retailer, National Art Materials Enterprises, is going to be introducing a new paintbrush called PowerBrush 2000 to its customers, right? So this is just going to give us an example of the type of way that we would formulate this prompt. So the prompt here is I want to write a marketing email to introduce the new PowerBrush 2000 paintbrush to our customers with the goal of clicking on the button in the email to watch a demo video. Right. So again, this very clearly defines the purpose. It shows what it is you're writing, what's the product or feature or service that you're talking about, who are you talking to, and then ultimately what your goal is. What's the purpose, goal, really the same thing. What do you want the outcome of this piece of content to be? Next, we want to specify our request. So make your prompt as specific as possible. GPT models respond best when prompts have very clear direction. You can never add too much detail. I have seen, the specificity on what you're looking for run an entire Word document two pages long. That's okay. I've seen prompts that are thousands and thousands of words. You can never be too long. You can definitely be too short. So I definitely recommend giving as much detail here as possible. In this case, we're going to assume that our request is that we want GPT to generate an effective and compelling marketing email that introduces National Art Materials Enterprises and its new paintbrush. Now, one thing that you don't have to do in one prompt is repeat yourself, right? So if you remember the previous slide, we introduced what the product was. It was a PowerBrush 2000. We don't have to keep saying PowerBrush 2000. It'll start to understand when you're talking about marketing copy that you've already mentioned before that's the product that you're featuring. So you don't have to be repetitive, though. It doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt if you're as prescriptive as possible in mentioning a product, a brand name, etc., over and over. In this case, the prompt is, please draft a marketing email that introduces National Art Materials Enterprises and its innovative new paintbrush. Again, you can add more detail here. Maybe you can talk about specific actions you want taken. We did talk earlier in the purpose about wanting to click on a button, wanting to watch a video. That could be repeated again here. I have found when you move the outcome earlier in the prompt, it weights that importance as higher. So I find better results and more focus on what your goal is the earlier it is in a prompt. By the way, you don't have to follow this order. We have 7 steps, other than the last step being review and refine. Everything else could be in whatever order that you want, though we do find the steps that we have, they seem more logical, more linear to most people. So it's a good, I think a good framework for people to use as they're getting used to creating prompt content in this space. Now, you're not just limited here, obviously, to this simple prompt. What else can we do? Maybe we want people to purchase the product. Maybe we want to demo the product. Maybe we want to call to action, come in and actually try out the product, sign up for a discount. Maybe, check us out on social. There's, you can add all kinds of additional requests here into your prompt. So the next one is providing context. So if necessary, provide some background information to orient the chatbot. This is particularly important if your prompt refers to prior information or requires very specific domain knowledge. So you'll need to give the GPT some background information about National Art Materials Enterprises and who your intended target is. If you're a big company, or let's say you're referencing a large, well-known company, it will have information in its database about your company. If you're a smaller niche organization or you're newer, it probably won't have a lot of information. So putting as much context into your prompt as possible will be very beneficial. And not just for the company, but any other context within what you're trying to achieve is going to be beneficial. In this case, the way that we design the prompt is National Art Materials Enterprises is a leading national retailer who sells high quality art supplies suitable for a variety of art and design applications. The recipient is a customer who already has shopped at NAME, N-A-M-E, in the past. So National Art Materials Enterprises, NAME, that's a joke. The key, really interesting kind of point of view here, and I see a lot of people who don't think about the recipient enough, right? We spent a lot of time in the framework early on identifying who the chatbot is, talking about different types of expertise, the role, what we want to happen. We don't talk enough about the customer, right? So if you were to write this email and you didn't say that you want that it's going to a customer who's already shopped at this particular retailer, they may create content that assumes that person's never been to your store before. So adding that context that they're already an existing shopper, that they're familiar with you, will likely tell AI to focus less on branding and driving awareness about the retailer and more on the product, right? So if you think about logically, how do you get someone to come in and shop at your store? Well, you got to first introduce that there's a store that exists. 2, make sure that they know what you sell, and 3, make sure that you have something that's interesting to them, right? In this case, if you already know the retailer exists, you already know what they sell, then you can jump straight to promoting the product. So this context of telling the AI that the customer, that this is meant for a customer and that this person's already shopped at your store, will help it understand to maybe jump straight to that product promotion piece of the request. Oops, jumped too quickly. So next is tone and style. So first off, this is an area where your organization, if you're truly embracing the use of GPT across the organization, your company should have a preset parameter for what your tone and style as a company should be. So in your tone and style, essentially, that desired kind of either formal, informal, casual, whatever tone of voice that you want to use. What's the style of the content that's being created in the response? And remembering that and using it over and over can be helpful in ensuring that you have that same consistent professional tone and style across all the content you're creating. So we encourage a lot, all of our clients to have kind of a corporate tone and style prompt that they can put into every request that any employee generates. And then you can always layer on your own personal style on top of that, right? So maybe you have a corporate style, but I, as the head of HR, for instance, I speak like this. But giving it as much direction on tone and style of the content is going to get the best response possible. It's also going to ensure that it's not robotic. If anyone's ever used ChatGPT and said, "Oh, everything I get out of it sounds like a robot," it's partly because you're not giving it enough detail on the tone and style that you're looking for. And going deeper in that space will give it more personality, more uniqueness, and more character to what it's creating. So the prompt here is National Art Material Enterprises. Tone should be professional yet personable and engaging. The style should be brief and to the point. So in this case, we kept it very simple, but you can add as much detail here as you want. Again, I mentioned earlier, like I recommend having a prompt for your organization that everyone uses. It creates that consistency that's going to make all the content across the organization work more effectively together and feel more consistent. All right, so the next one is clarify the structure. So if you have a specific format in mind for the response, like let them know. Maybe you want a list, maybe you want step-by-step guide, maybe you want pros and cons, an analysis of some sort. Clarifying that structure is going to help tell GPT what information should be covered in the response that it's generating. So in this case, the email should start with a brief greeting, then provide a brief introduction to National Art Materials Enterprises, highly innovative painting solutions, explain how our product can enhance their art projects and designs, and invite them to visit the store to see the new PowerBrush 2000 in person. Okay, so once all those are created, we then stack all of those prompts together into one single prompt. And this is an example of what that would look like. So just out of curiosity, are you generally using prompts of this length or shorter? If you're generally using prompts shorter than what you're seeing on screen, put your hand up. Use a little hand raising button at the top of the screen. I'm just kind of curious what the majority of this group is doing. All right, we got 4, 7. Okay, so 8. All right, so look, this is very, very common for people to use shorter prompts because, like, we hear how AI, ChatGPT makes us more efficient. And so we run right to efficiency. We're like, great, I'm going to just throw something in there quickly. I'm going to get a result. The more that time that you put into the generation of the prompt, the better the outcome is going to be, and the shorter, less amount of time you're going to use to refine that content and get it out the door wherever it's supposed to go. So spending a little bit more time on your prompt, getting it more detailed, is going to get you a better outcome and get you and ultimately save you a significant amount of time because you're going to get to your solution much, much faster. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to and here's what the results would be. So I literally ran it through the ChatGPT, and this is the result that it came out with. And this is a case where there's some other things I could have done. It's probably still too long here. I probably could have get a character count, right? So, write me a 400-word email. That's a great way to give it, make sure that the length is right. In this case, I didn't give a lot of direction as to the sender. Like I said, who the company was sending it from, but not like what the purpose of the sender was. Am I trying to generate leads? Should this look like a personal email? Should it look like a marketing email? Like lots of things that I could have added even more detail to get an even more refined response in. But again, this would have taken me, as a marketer, probably would have taken me at least half an hour to an hour to write, if not more, right? Especially those moments where we have severe writer's block and we just can't get the first words on paper. In this case, this initial prompt probably took me about 5 minutes to write, especially using my worksheet that we're going to go over in a second. and then we're off to the races and have content generated. So it really can be a force multiplier for teams. We showed this to you in the context of marketing, but this can be used across any role. Like, how many emails do we write a day? How many to customers, to clients, to internal stakeholders, investors, etc. It's a great tool to simplify content creation, whether it's an email or any other kind of written content. So I want to now pivot over to the prompt worksheet. So I'm going to ask you guys to open up that prompt worksheet, and I want to co-create a prompt today with you guys, and then run it through and see what the results are. Right. So think about for a second, what are the types of use cases that would be relevant to you? Doesn't need to follow what I wrote, right? Just because I wrote that was a marketing email, choose whatever's relevant to you. Is it an email you're creating for, internal or external stakeholders? Are you creating some blog content? Are you creating an SOP? One of my favorite things to do here when we're developing SOPs for for internal teams, like, those are terrible to write. They're boring. They take forever, right? Like, it's just not exciting for a lot of people, and they get stuck starting. So SOPs are a great way, a great type of content to use this for. I've literally taken images of workflows, of processes, uploaded it, ask it to analyze the process, and then write an SOP to describe the process that's in the visual. So those are all things that you can do with this technology. But for now, pick whatever's relevant for you, open up the worksheet, and let's start filling it in. So we're going to start with identifying purpose. I'm going to pause for a second. Do we have any questions first? Is there any questions on this framework that we went through that we're about to give a go to ourselves that you want to go into, that you want to discuss before we actually start using this worksheet? All right. Is there anyone that doesn't have the worksheet? Okay. If for some reason you can't find it, it is in the chat. Just click on the chat feature and let's go ahead and download it and get started. So I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes. I'd like for you to identify the purpose, specify your request, provide context, go all the way through. Don't worry about the last step, which is read and refine. The first one done, just go ahead and raise your hand. And we're gonna run it through live for you guys and take a look at what we get out of it. And when you're ready, just come off mute and say, "Hey, I'm ready," and we'll talk about how to get me the results. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. I'm gonna start a timer. We're gonna use this 5 minutes to fill out this worksheet. At this stage, don't overthink it, even though I told you to overthink it throughout this training. Keep it simple. Some of these one sentences is sufficient for right now. We'll work on building them as we get more comfortable with it, but keep it simple. Let's get, all 6 of these stages written, and then we'll give it a go.
Bradley, when you're talking about the AI, should you use you as a pronoun as opposed to I? Meaning, like,
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It kind of understands it. One thing, so keep it consistent. So if I tend to write in the first person. But it doesn't always have to be written in the first person. It can be written in third person. Someone's having a good time. Yeah, you should be on about the third question by now. And then as soon as you're done, you can either copy and paste that row into the chat window, or you can save the file and email it to me. Either one's fine. Okay, there's about a minute left, so you guys should be finishing up now. You gold star here. Uh-oh. ChatGPT is down right now. Try. A second. There we go. All right. So who submitted the one in the chat? You want us to come on off mute and maybe explain kind of what you're trying to accomplish, a little background on what your prompt is, and I'll throw it in here and show the results.
Well, you can set up ChatGPT to have your profile so it always will know who you are and what kind of tone you want to go. So I just copied and pasted that, and I just took a recent chat or a recent prompt that I made to do a bi-weekly meeting. So I kind of just copied and pasted that. So it's like an outline of how I want to address my staff to set up this bi-weekly meeting that we have amongst our team.
Great. Okay. It's going to create the agenda. Topic ideas. That's interesting. Let's go back and reread this.
Oh, I didn't do it like, well, I didn't really do it with this complete prompt. So that is interesting that it would have suggestions on topics.
Yeah. And that's actually not uncommon. It's pretty common for it to go in and provide additional recommendations based off whatever it kind of is guessing that you're trying to accomplish. So the shorter prompt with the fewer details, the more likely it is going to come back and also give you recommendations at the end, which is a bad thing, right? So if you're just trying to figure out maybe what should I be thinking about, you don't really have a fully formed thought yet. Like it's great in giving you ideas of what to incorporate. Okay. Do we have anyone else that's be ready to share?
I'll send one over, Bradley.
All right, let's see.
I may have used some of your ideas.
There you go. Perfect. Now, the one thing, if you paste in a spreadsheet, sometimes the cell formatting will freak out ChatGPT. You can upload it and it'll be fine. Sometimes copying and pasting the HTML in there will kind of freak it out. So I always go in and I paste it in to Word, strip out all the formatting, and then paste it into ChatGPT. It just tends to like save an extra step, me having going back and having to resend it. So I put it in here. Let's see. So you're a senior software training manager. You're an expert in multifamily software solutions. You want to write features and benefits. Draft reminder email to community managers, the importance of using Elise.
Elise AI, yes.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Asking one AI to write about another AI. We're going to see if they like each other.
It's like having Alexa and Siri talk to each other.
Okay, let's see what happens. So how long do you think you would spend writing this email?
Writing it or editing?
Let's just start with writing it. First draft. How long would first draft take you?
I'll first draft probably 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. And then you're going to have to edit it.
Mhm.
How long do you think you'd edit?
For tone and clarity, probably another 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. Then you got to proof it.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So this gets you to first draft faster, right? You probably spend 5 minutes, a little over 5 minutes writing the prompt. Probably saved you at least 10 minutes to get to the first draft. When you go back through, make the revisions, manually throw back that down there to, throw it through again to have it proof or copy and grammar and punctuation. Now you've probably trimmed 15 to 20 minutes off of your time. This isn't an easy button. It doesn't replace hard work. What it does do is make you a little bit more efficient. And it's like our goal right now when we're helping organizations implement AI in ChatGPT being one of those across the organization is we're looking for 10% efficiency. If we can generate 10% more efficiency, i.e. 10% more productivity, it's a huge windfall for any business and for the individuals in that business. So we shouldn't be thinking about this as something that's going to replace people. It's something that's going to supplement and make them more efficient and faster at getting to a good resolution, right? Versus just taking human decisioning and human creation out of the process. Does anyone else want to share one?
Brad, I just sent you one.
Is it in the chat or email?
Email.
All right, let's see what you wrote. While I'm getting this open, do you want to share a little bit about what you were trying to accomplish with this prompt?
Sure. So I am on my to-do list today was to send an email out to the community managers who are testing delinquency AI through Elise AI, and ask for their feedback, and also ask for them to send me a list of residents who are using affordable housing vouchers so we can add them to a do not contact list.
And have you done
And
that
so
yet?
I haven't. This is
And
my I'm
it's
gonna
late in
use
the day. This is the
what was
perfect
that?
use case. It's perfect.
Yeah,
It's late.
it's the perfect use case.
All right, so I got this. I threw it into Word to strip out the formatting. And again, that's not always a necessary step. I just do it, especially when I'm on a webinar, because if it craps out, I've got to like close out the chat and relaunch it, and it just takes a few extra minutes. And how long do you spend writing this prompt?
So I'm a very good writer. I have a lot of pride in that. So I probably could do this whole exercise in about 30 minutes, but the prompt itself was like 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. And here's the results here. How does this fit what your vision was?
I'm like reading it right now. At first glance, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, so like it gets you a starting point, right? It cuts down the creation time so that you spend more time reacting, especially for people who aren't great writers, and you're lucky that you're comfortable writing, that is something that you're proficient in. Not everyone's a great writer, and especially some of our younger employees, right? During COVID, they didn't get as much time in the classroom, getting experience in creating content, writing professionally, grammar, spelling, etc. We find this is a great tool for younger individuals just starting in their career to make sure they can get the right tone, right? The professionalism that you need as a professional, but maybe don't have the experience to write in that tone consistently. So great, short little email, nice and succinct, got the content across very easily. I mean, that's really what what ChatGPT or any of the other solutions out there can offer you. Couple of things to keep in mind. ChatGPT does have a private mode, so if you have sensitive information, it doesn't supposedly share it back up to the cloud. It doesn't archive information. There are some downsides of having it in private mode, but it is an option especially if you're just writing emails like this, and you're using sensitive data. It's a great way to ensure that that data isn't shared publicly back up to a database. I personally, if I'm using proprietary data, I use a different solution than ChatGPT in private mode. I think there's a lot of downsides to ChatGPT in private mode where it just doesn't deliver quite as good a result in certain types of scenarios. So I use a platform called Freedom GPT for really sensitive information. That entire platform doesn't share any of his data back up to the cloud. You don't need to worry about toggling on and off of a private mode. So this is great if you're just, anytime I'm doing something with financial data, PII, anything that's sensitive, I just go straight to Freedom GPT versus using ChatGPT. If I'm just using ChatGPT, if I'm just creating content, that really isn't, hypersensitive or using generalized data, then ChatGPT is my go-to. You'll see, I literally use it every day. I'm almost every day I'm creating content with the aid of ChatGPT. So we're kind of running short on time here. So I guess I would love to just maybe open the floor for questions. Is there anything you have around this framework that maybe you were curious or questioning about how to implement or write against? What can I answer for you? Nothing? We're crystal clear? Okay. So how many of us, we have 19 on the call right now. How many of us actually sat down and wrote a prompt during this call? Just raise your hand.
I did find the template super helpful. Being like very new to this, it's a helpful start for me for sure.
Great. And once you're using it, once you're comfortable with it, if you write 10 prompts with it, you can usually throw the template away, right? Because you start to think, okay, how am I going to craft a prompt? You get used to asking, the right questions regularly, or writing out the right questions and information regularly. So it's not like I don't use it anymore. I used it for a few weeks, and then I stopped using it from there. Now I just create everything directly in ChatGPT. But as a framework, I still follow the framework religiously because it's just simple. Like you don't have to think about it. If you memorize the progression of the things you have to include and write in that way every time, you'll just speed up how quickly you're able to generate a prompt. And you're going to ensure you don't forget something, right? You're not skipping over an important piece so that you get to the right answer, the right result faster, and now don't have to reprompt and send it back through multiple times. Okay, well, with that, unless there's any other final questions, I really appreciate your time, appreciate your participation. Thank you for those who shared their prompts with us. I encourage you, if you didn't get to share your prompt, sign up for ChatGPT. If you don't have an account, if you have an account, go in and run your prompt through ChatGPT today so you can see what the results are. It's always really fun to see what the outcome is. It's not always what you expect. What I do find is that I don't always get the result that I'm expecting, but I get a result that I can, in most cases, that I'm able to use, right? It gives another perspective on how you can solve a problem. And I find that really interesting too, right? You have other people, another vision of a solution using the same input. So encourage you, use ChatGPT in your personal life. If your company is open to it, use it within your organization as well. It's going to absolutely make you more efficient and more effective as a professional. So thank you very much. Enjoy. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. That's what we're here for. We're here to help educate and improve your experience in your professional role. You should have my email. You'll get a follow-up email after this, probably tomorrow, with a recap along with a video. And feel free to share that with your peers, and hopefully your entire organization embraces utilizing these efficiency tools to make everyone's workday a little bit better. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.